Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the 9th District PTA Programs webinar. I am Shauna Straw, Vice President and Director of Leadership Services for 9th District PTA, and organizing training is part of my job description. We are very excited to bring this workshop to you via a webinar. It has taken a pandemic to move us to this platform. We look forward to providing training to you in person soon, but I think this will be very helpful as you prepare for the strangest beginning to a PTA year ever. First, we'd like to thank CalCRO's Credit Union for providing the funding for the webinar platform. They were originally going to provide us with scholarships for several PTA leaders to attend training, and this way, everyone receives free training. Now, some housekeeping notes. As I said, this is a webinar, not a Zoom meeting, so as an attendee, you don't have access to video or audio, only to listen to us. We have disabled the chat feature to help us manage this webinar better, but we will use it to broadcast messages and links out to everyone. Instead, webinars have a Q&A feature, which is a button at the bottom of your screen. You can type questions in there as you think of them, and there will be breaks in the presentation to answer those questions. We are recording this webinar, and approximately 24 hours from now, you will receive an email with a link to view the recording. We have also added the links to the previous webinars to our website so you can watch those if you have missed them, although that might be a few minutes still before it's live. When you leave the webinar, a screen will pop up asking you to take a survey. This is our survey, and we hope you will take a moment to fill it out so we have your feedback on how this exciting new form of training is working. If you are watching this as a recording, you can visit our website and fill out the survey there. It is on the same page as the other video recordings. Okay, enough for me. I am very excited to introduce Abby Fellman as our workshop presenter. Abby lives in Sonoma County and is a member of the Education Commission and the Reflections Commission for California State PTA. I attended this program's workshop while attending the State PTA Convention last year, and I couldn't wait to bring her to 9th District to share this workshop with all of you. Abby has 5 children, school-age children, so she is on the front lines dealing with the same issues you are dealing with in your own communities. Thank you, Abby, for coming all the way to San Diego today to present this workshop for us.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be in San Diego, but I'm very disappointed to not actually be in San Diego. I am up in Sonoma County, so I actually have a wonderful home, and I'm really grateful to be here in California in general, but I'm excited to share these ideas with you guys in the Southern California area. So today we're going to be talking about programs, easy, fun, and I have some free ideas because free is always great. Let's go ahead and just get started. First of all, my name is Abby Fellman, and I did put my email address on this slide. So if anybody needs to get a hold of me, if you have questions, comments, concerns, whatever, you're welcome to email me at afellman@capta.org. All right, so we're going to talk about our programs. Programs are anything that your PTA does for the community you're in. If you think about why you joined PTA, you probably joined either for a specific program like advocacy. Maybe you really love the Halloween Carnival. Maybe you really love the after-school enrichment programs. Or if you're like me, I joined because I wanted to be part of a community, and I joined so I could get to know people. That was because of the PTA programs. Programs are what build that community. So PTA programs cover a wide range of activities. It can be family engagement, parent education, reflections or other art events, health advocacy, education-focused events like STEAM nights or family math nights, after-school enrichment. So much more is available, whatever your school decides or your PTA decides to do. When I am working on PTA programs, I like to focus on the KISS method. I call it keeping it super simple. Keeping it simple is important for a few reasons. First of all, we don't want to burn you out. If you get tired of working and doing PTA events, it's not going to help anybody. Also, it becomes very hard to recruit somebody to take your job next term if you make it super complicated. So keep it super simple. First, you're going to do, so there's a few things I do to keep it simple. I first set some great goals. As an association or as a PTA, you sit down and decide where you want to go with your year. And then make sure you plan your year realistically. You don't want to overload your calendar. You don't want to make sure that you have 4 huge events right in a row, maybe space out your big events. I always love to have a good team. And a good team isn't just your favorite people, although it's best if you have friends and you make friends as you're working with this group. But build a good team by finding people who have a variety of skills and abilities. I like to talk about my friend Angie at this point, because my friend Angie and I became friends when she was my hospitality director when I was the PTA president at our school. I am really great at making sure all of the to-do list gets done. I am great with a checklist. If you tell me a goal, I will get us there. Angie is really good at making sure you have fun the whole way through. She's very creative. I had never TP'd before, and we were getting ready for a dance for the elementary school. And she pulls out the crepe paper and she's like, Abby, it's just like TPing. And the thing is, Angie had been TPing and she had all these fun experiences and she didn't see anything wrong with this. And I was sitting there going, I have never done this. I don't know how to decorate a gym with crepe paper. But between the two of us, she taught me how to keep things fun and keep it exciting. And I made sure the details got taken care of. All the money made it to where it needed to go. All the volunteers knew what they needed to do. So build a good team. Plan ahead is the 4th idea here. I don't want you to wait till the last minute to go plan what food you're gonna get, plan what games you need to plan. If you plan ahead and work slowly and do little bits here and there, it won't feel as overwhelming. So make sure you plan ahead. And then my 5th tip, and I think this may be the most important tip for you, is I want you to know what details are important and know what can be flexible. It's very important that you don't get tied down to details that in the long run won't be remembered. So, for instance, the color of the tablecloth might feel really important in the moment. Maybe you want to do school colors for the tablecloths, but you can't find the right shade of blue. You know what? Those kids are probably not going to remember what shade of blue it was. They're just going to remember how much fun they had. So go ahead and keep those details flexible. It can be flexible, and make sure you're hitting your goals. All right. Let's see. There we go. So when it comes to planning your program year, I want you to make sure your calendar makes sense. You're going to start by brainstorming your ideas. Prioritize the programs that work towards your goals. I always like to remind you to keep some of your traditions. There will be people that join your PTA because they want to change things. There will be people that join your PTA because they want to make sure you don't lose your traditions. So as you're planning your year, you're going to want to keep an eye on what traditions make our community what we are, and what kind of new ideas might help us become something bigger and better, or what new ideas would make us fresh and exciting. I think it's good to keep a balance of some traditions and some new ideas. You never know what new ideas might become the next traditions. It's good to have an idea of how full you want your calendar to be. If you only have 2 volunteers to run all of your hospitality events, you probably do not want to have a big school-wide party every week. You're going to burn out your volunteers. If you have enough people to do a team, 5 people for every event once a month, then sure, that sounds like a great plan. Whatever it is that you determine is your capacity, make sure that you don't exceed that, and make sure that you're doing what you would like to do and keep the priorities on your calendar. Get an idea of what's realistic. Keep in mind the school has events, your community will have events. You want to make sure that you're planning your calendar well, but also if you don't know how to run a color run, you may want to pace yourself, and maybe don't put that right at the beginning of the year. Give yourself time to work through some of the details. Or if you just don't know how to, if you haven't ever done a big carnival before, but you want to have a carnival, maybe don't plan to have 30 games, plan to start with 10 games. Keep it realistic, whatever is in your capability. And then my last tip for you also here is to consider all of the ideas brought to the table. A lot of people join PTA because they want to be involved, but if they come and they share ideas and those ideas are dismissed offhand, that's very off-putting, and it's very hard to feel like you're part of something. So make sure you consider all ideas. That doesn't mean you have to do everything. It doesn't mean that everybody's ideas are necessarily considered at length. but at least let the ideas come to the table and then talk about what would work, why it would work, why it wouldn't work. And at the very end of the day, PTA operates on a vote system. So if you can bring all the ideas to the table and let the board kind of vote what to bring to the association, allow your association to vote and approve the calendar, we want to make sure everybody's voices are heard. All right, step 2 for planning your program year. After you've researched and you have a list of ideas, things you want to do some research and look at your community calendars. Like I said, schools have events, you have sports calendars, you have holidays, you have the town holidays. I know without a doubt that if my school planned an event on the last Saturday of April, nobody would show up in my town because that is the same day as the Butter and Eggs Parade. Our entire community is downtown at the parade. Nobody's going to come to the school for anything. Same thing, I try to make sure, like, I know that in my community, soccer is a big deal in September, baseball rules everything in April and May. So we keep those as our smaller events. We try to make sure that those are things that we're not throwing a lot of energy into an event that we know we won't have a lot of people attending, because people have busy schedules and we want to make sure we work and make it flexible and make it work for the community. So have an idea of what's on your community calendars. Also, before you schedule things, make sure you have a rough budget and make sure you can actually afford to do all of the things that you want to do. It's a good idea just to have a rough budget. It doesn't have to be down to the details, but maybe say, you know, we're going to do a carnival and we're willing to spend $300 on that, and lay it all out and make sure it's in the budget and you have enough money to make those things happen. Especially important, and this is probably a good thing for your president to do, maybe your president and your hospitality director, whoever, but whoever's in charge of the overall events at your school, you're going to want to go meet with your administrators. We are guests on our school campuses. As much as we feel it's home and we're there all the time, the principals and the administrators at our school campuses are responsible for making sure that everything on campus goes well and flows and it fits the guidelines that are set forth by the school board. So you're going to want to run all of your ideas past the principal. Make sure that the principal doesn't have any big red flags. And then finally, before you nail down those events and confirm that you're doing them, I highly recommend that you look at the insurance guide or call AIM, our insurance company that you have insurance through, to make sure all your PTA activities are covered by our insurance. And I have, Rose, do you have your insurance guide? Can you pop on here and show everybody? There we go, my lovely Rose. She is holding the 2020 insurance guide put out by AIM Insurance. AIM is based out of Texas and they have been amazing for us. They have 24-hour customer service for you, and they have customer service in multiple languages. So you can call and talk to somebody and get information about what you need to do to make your events work. In your insurance guide, you will see that there are 3 categories of events. We made them conveniently easy to understand the system. If it's a green light activity, you don't have to ask for permission or make any special arrangements. Green light activities are approved and will be covered by our insurance. If it's a yellow light activity, it's probably good, but there might be a couple of little details that they're going to ask you to do. One of the things I remember is if you're going to have a bounce house, they want you to have it be like an obstacle course, not just an empty room for kids to jump in. And they're going to remind you, you got to tether it down so that it doesn't fly away. So just little details to make it safe. And then if it's a red light activity, it is a no-go. We are just not going to be covering that with our insurance. And so you are not going to want to do that activity. Okay? So once you kind of have all your research and make sure all of your events are approved, your proposed dates are going to work, hang on, let's get to the next slide. Then you're going to make sure you plug it all in, get it all put on exactly like you want it. Make sure you have a master schedule of your meetings and your events. I always start with my meetings because meetings are prescribed in your bylaws. The dates are already put in there. So you have to go with the dates in your bylaws. So put those on your meeting or on your calendar, board meetings and association meetings, and then fill in with your family nights and your fun activities. And then after all of the fun give backs that we do, I like to put the fundraisers in last. Fundraisers are wonderful and important. It's a great thing that PTAs can do for your community, but it's not our reason for being on campus. So I want you to make sure that we're focused on what we're doing for our community, and then fill in the fundraisers as you need them. Fundraisers are important because they do help us do everything, but we don't want them to be the only thing that PTAs do. Along those lines, we have a guideline for you. We call it our 3-to-1 guideline. This guideline means that you are doing 3 fun things. You're giving back 3 things to your community for every fundraiser you run. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I always counted our fun family nights. I counted any classroom funds that we gave as another option or another thing that we gave back. If you're donating or giving things to the school, I consider that a give back. If you're running different, let's see, if you're doing a book exchange or if you're having family reading night, those are all give backs. But if you're going to have a fun run, that's a fundraiser. So 1 fundraiser for 3 give backs. Let's see. Oh, and then the other thing, just so you know, like how I work, our school sells ice cream on Wednesday afternoons. We sell like Otter Pops and popsicles. The kids love it. We get out of school early on Wednesdays and they think it's the coolest thing to grab ice cream and go. So that's a fundraiser. I don't count that as a different fundraiser each week. That's a fundraiser in itself. That, like, the concept of ice cream is just one big fundraiser. All right, let's see. Taking care of business. Like I told you, I'm a checklist girl. So this is my checklist. These are the things you want to make sure you get taken care of so that every event is covered by insurance and runs as smoothly as possible. So you've got your calendar that you've just gone through and you made your calendar of all your events. First thing you need to do is have your association approve your proposed programs. If you try to hold a program that's not been approved by your association and it's put in the minutes, you need to have it in the minutes to have it covered by insurance. So if something goes wrong and you forgot to have the association vote to approve that event, then you will not have the insurance coverage you need. So you need to vote to approve the proposed programs. I normally put out a calendar for the year and it has all of our meetings and all of our events. And that is the program calendar. And I have my association vote to approve the whole thing. It can be voted on and changed as you go. So that's fine. But I start at the beginning of the year to make sure everything is in the minutes. All right. So once it's in the minutes as being an approved program, you need to put it in the budget or have it approved in your annual budget at the beginning of the year too. So in your proposed budget that you put out to your association for approval, you need to have each event listed and how much money you are going to ask to use for that event. So, so it's detailed enough that we can see what you're expecting to have come in and go out for each event. All right, so once you have it in your budget and in your program calendar, it's all been approved. Then as your events are coming up, you need to vote to release funds for each of the programs. I normally would have my events person vote to, or propose what she would move to release the funds about a month or 2 months ahead of the program. That way we had the funds released so she could start purchasing things and getting contracts taken care of for each program ahead of time. Whenever you need to start signing checks for a program, that's when you need to release the funds from the association. And let's see. Yep, okay. Then you want to make sure you appoint a chairman for each program. I like to have a different chairman for most of the programs. That way you're not burning out any individual, but whoever is available and would like to be a chairman, that would be a great person to ask. And I wouldn't recommend leaving any program for just one person to run. I would ask for a group of people, have a committee, even just a couple of other people to help make sure the details are getting taken care of. So the president can appoint a chairman and can appoint the committee members to help the chairman get things done. Now, this is something else that I want to make sure that PTA volunteers think about. You need to let your committee do the work. If somebody has volunteered to do something, it's not fair to micromanage them. And if you are really worried about any of the details for an event, I highly recommend that you sign up to be on the committee. You can see my little asterisk here. It says, Janet, if you need blue tablecloths, join the committee. And it's valid. If Janet really wants the blue tablecloths, we want her on the committee because she can help make sure the details that she cares about get done. I want you to make sure after the event is over, so you've gotten everything approved, you've done all the work, you've had the event, debrief with your whole committee. Talk about what went well, talk about what didn't go well, talk about ideas, things that you might want to add in for next year. I like to think of this as the roses, thorns, and rosebuds. Roses are the things that went well. Thorns are the things that, oh, we should plan ahead and make sure we don't do that again. And the rosebuds are the ideas that might grow into something beautiful for next year. Once you have all of your report or your debrief done with your committee, create a report to present to your association. It's important to put that into your association minutes. That is part of the historian work. You want to make sure you're tracking what's happening, what your PTA is doing. It informs the next volunteers for next year to know what happened and what went well. I have a couple of great tools that I highly recommend for you. These are available on the CAPTA toolkit. The first one is the event planning workshop or worksheet. If you look at this worksheet, it contains a lot of details that will help you make sure things are getting done. It has checklists. It has a place to put all of the committee members' names and their contact information, because if they're not on the volunteer list next year, but you have a question, you might want to be able to call them. So this is a great thing to have. You talk about your expenses, talk about publicity, and track when you're going to have flyers done, when you're going to have flyers sent out. And this tool will just help you work through all of the details. So I highly recommend that your committee has one of these for each event. And then at the end of your program, your committee needs to fill out this committee report. It gives all of the debrief. This is a great tool to use as you're doing your debrief with the committee. Make sure you're talking about what went well, what didn't go well. Attach the required information. The thing about this report is that when you're done with it, you can go and you can stand up and tell your association how the event went. But then you can take this committee report and just hand it to the secretary, and they have everything they need to put in the minutes to track this program. So it's a really great tool for helping to move communication along and make your secretary's life a little bit easier. This form is also available on the toolkit. Now, all of this is well and good, but you have to remember things are not always going to go great. Things are not always going to go exactly like you planned. Things might be great, but stuff just goes kind of funny. I used to work in a wedding venue, and we used to laugh that it didn't matter how much work a bride put into all of her wedding, something would go funny, and every wedding had their little hiccup, and it was kind of funny. It's the same thing with PTA. So I think of PTA as standing for plot twist and action. You just have to learn to roll with it. When things go funny, laugh it off and keep moving. It'll be easier for you if you plan for that. All right. So that's a general idea of how to run programs in general. Now I want to give you a few tools to help you weed out and plan and pull in maybe some great ideas. So today I want to talk to you about the National Standards for Family School Partnerships. This is a set of standards that have been developed to help you and your school community to make sure that you're effectively working with the people who have their kids on campus, your students and their families. All right, so the first standard that we're going to talk about is welcoming all families. Our PTAs are here for all children and families. So we want to make sure everyone feels welcome and part of the community, make sure everybody knows how to be a part of the community. So some PTA program ideas to help make your school feel welcoming to everybody. You could maybe develop a family resource center or partner with your principal to have a volunteer list of options so people know what the school needs and how their skills and abilities might help. A lot of PTAs find that they can help by helping develop communication in various languages to make sure everyone in the community can understand the flyers that are coming home. And another thing to think about is your meeting times and your locations. All of our PTAs have meetings, but not all of them are accessible to everybody. One of my most wonderfully top performing schools here in Sonoma County had a great idea, and I love it because I've been watching as they've used this idea, their PTA has become a much richer environment. A lot of people that weren't volunteering are now part of the PTA. And what they've done is they now have, every month they have a meeting, but it alternates. 1 month they'll have their meeting in the morning right after drop off. They have coffee in the library and hold a meeting. The next month they have an evening meeting, and parents can come at like 7 o'clock at night. And that way they're hitting 2 different family groups. They're hitting 2 different groups of parents. And they actually see just very little overlap in who comes for both of those times. But because they've staggered their meetings, they have 2 full big groups of people that are eager to be part of the PTA and help. So find a time, find a location, whatever it takes for your PTA. Know your community and know what people are looking for. Not only for your meetings, but also for your family events. Maybe Saturdays are better. Maybe Wednesday nights are better. Look at your community and see what people need. The second standard is communicating effectively. And when I was in college, I took a class on communication, and I was informed that communication is a 2-way street. There's people sending a message and receiving a message. And if one of those isn't working, there's no communication. So to that end, if you are the one sending a message, if you're trying to communicate ideas out to your parents and your families, make sure that you're using many forms of communication to put yourself out there and make sure that anybody can catch the message in the way that works for them. That might mean flyers, might mean emails, text messages, social media. It might mean sending a message more than once, sending out 3 or 4 flyers once a week. Send a flyer for 4 weeks before an event. Whatever your school has a system for, and whatever capabilities you guys might have, try to make sure you're sending out many forms of communication and a big net to give people as much of a chance to catch that communication as possible. I have also found that parent surveys work well. As a unit president, I would do a survey at the beginning of the year asking for who would be interested in helping. I would put specific volunteer opportunities on my survey, and so people could sign up there. And then I also had a spot where people could just say, these are my skills, let me know what you need. Again, that's how I found my friend Angie. She was a hospitality director, and when she was able to mark on there, I can do hospitality, that's how we found her and plugged her into our PTA. Made a great volunteer out of her. So parent survey at the beginning of the year, asking for volunteers. I like to do a parent survey at the end of the year, asking them what they thought of our program year and having them give feedback so we could use their information to make a better plan for next year. Parent surveys. You could help facilitate conversation between administration and families by hosting. Well, you could have principal with a coffee with the principal event, or you could have teacher panels where teachers could come and talk about studying skills that students might use. But you could, as a PTA, help facilitate effective communication between parents and teachers through your events or your meetings. And just focusing on activities that help families connect with each other. One of my favorite events that I've heard so many great responses to is the family reading night. Just setting up a night for families to come and spend time together and read, and just developing that time. Not everybody takes the time to sit down and do that, and it's a great way to facilitate effective communication within families even. Oh gosh, where are we? This is the third standard, the support student success. A lot of people are already on campus to help support success. We have our administrators, we have our teachers, we have para staff, we have our yard duty staff. We have a lot of adults that are already on campus to help support student success, but your PTA can also be there to help. One of my best attended PTA meetings was when I had let's see, who did we have? I think we had the principal come in to explain how test scores worked on the standardized tests every year. And parents wanted to know what these tests could tell them about their students and what we could do to help our students get better test scores, what was important, what wasn't important. So supporting success by just helping parents understand what we can do. We had family learning events. We provided resources for learning at home. Again, these kind of go back to, like, I really loved the teacher panel that we had, or having the principal, anything that your school, your PTA can do to facilitate conversations between school administrators and families so that families understand how they can be a support for their student. That would be great. At this point, I want to make sure you see down at the bottom of this slide, you'll see 3 squares. One says Ed 100, then there's School of Excellence, and then there's School Smarts. These are all PTA programs that are already set up to help reach these standards. These programs are especially helpful in supporting student success. I would highly recommend that you check out all of those programs. PTA believes in this, and this is a part of who we are. So the 4th standard is speaking up for all children. We want to make sure that our parents understand their rights and responsibilities on campus, and teach parents and help parents become great advocates for their kids. PTA is already set up for that because as an organization, we started for the purpose of advocacy. And we still advocate to this day, and that's the heart and soul of what we are. That's why we're here, to advocate for a better world for our kids. So PTA programs to help you, to help your school and help develop great advocates. Again, Ed 100, School of Excellence, and School Smarts, each of those programs would help you develop great advocates in your parents. It's also good for PTA to have a voice at the table. So teach your parents how to be on the LCAP committee. Teach your parents how to effectively join the site council. These are ways that you can, as a PTA, develop advocates and develop parents who are involved in making a stronger, healthier community. And then the 5th standard is shared power. Our schools are stronger when our community is part of the decision making, and especially when families have a voice at the table. So again, this is, you can see all of these standards kind of fit together. Teaching your parents how to be a part of the system. The LCAP is how we get funding for our schools, right? So if our parents understand how important it is for them to be on that committee and to say what they want to see happening on campus, that would make a huge difference in how our schools develop and how the budgets are developed. Right now, we're all looking at a kind of weird budget season coming up, and our schools are trying to decide what programs are the most important things for them to focus on, and they're trying to decide how to make everything happen. If your PTA has parents on that LCAP committee or on the site council committee, then we are going to be starting to see parents have a shared voice. Parents have a voice and can make an impact on what actually gets done. I also want to point out that PTAs can and probably should be sponsoring forums about proposed changes. When bonds are proposed and are up for a vote in your community, or when decisions are being made in your community that might make an impact on your school, it's perfectly appropriate for your school to hold a forum where people can come and talk about the pros and cons, and you as an association can even take an official stance on whether you support or oppose something. So these are different kinds of advocacy and different ways to give parents a chance to have a voice at the table and to have a better understanding of what's going on. And finally, community collaboration. Our schools, they aren't in a vacuum. We have our administrators and teachers and staff. We have our parents, we have our students, but we also have businesses and other families in the community who might not have a child on campus, but they care about what's happening because these are the kids of their community. They already know that if our schools are successful, they will have successful, wonderful employees, and we'll have great public servants moving into the workforce. So a lot of community members are already invested and want to be a part of helping. So PTAs can engage community groups to help with PTA events or to help with activities on campus. A great way to think of it is your school is becoming a community center. How can you pull people together to support your students? So these are kind of standards to keep in mind as you're developing some of your programs, especially if you're developing programs that you want to have an intent or a purpose. A lot of my programs are always fun things, especially at the elementary level. You have your Halloween carnivals or your parades or dances or whatever you're going to do. But some events can be very focused and can push your community into advocacy and community engagement. So these standards can kind of help you develop a plan and a goal. Yes, Shauna.
Abby.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you take a breath here for a minute.
Okay.
We didn't, although not too much, because we didn't introduce Rosemary. So
I am so sorry.
I'm gonna make you do that real quick.
I forgot that was my spot to do that.
I know,
I forgot what I was doing. I'm not used to this.
We are doing, what is it? PTA is, what's your
Plot, twist, and action.
There we go.
Rose, I'm sorry. I love you, and I am so grateful that you're here. Let me take a minute to introduce my wonderful friend, Rosemary Baldessaroni. Rose is in Palmdale and has been the president of the 34th District PTA and is currently a member of the Membership Services Commission for the California State PTA. So Rose, would you like to say hi?
Hello, 9th District. Thank you for having me, and thank you for joining this webinar.
She's doing a great job answering questions. I just wanted, and I also wanted to, I put a chat to Rose about her not being introduced into the public chat box. So I wanted to apologize for that. That made no sense, but to let people know that we are putting links in the chat box, because when you watch this recording, those all show up on the recording. So that's why you're kind of seeing things in two places. Okay, we'll let you, now you can continue with your fabulous information.
I'm so sorry. In person, Rose would have been standing right there, and I wouldn't, but then she went dark and I missed her.
It's very hard when you're doing nothing but talking to your computer.
It's so funky. Anyways, Rose, I love you, and I'm so sorry. I'm grateful for you being here. All right, so now we've kind of gone through and talked about a lot of things that help develop a plan and help you build a big picture, right? But I know you're probably here because you're most interested in ideas on what programs to run. I know I like to steal ideas from people or get ideas and kind of find ways to plug them in. So here we're gonna start talking about actual hard ideas for you. While we were talking about the standards, I pointed out that California PTA actually already has some programs in place for parent engagement and for building a better, stronger community for advocacy. The first program I want to talk about is School Smarts. School Smarts is a payment program, so you have to buy the program in order to run it at your school. But you can actually have your school board vote to do this with, or your principal can use your LCAP funds to cover this program. So this is a great thing to suggest to your principal and advocate for being brought into your campus. School Smarts is a program that will normally pull in about 40 parents is the goal from your school. And then over the course of 8 weeks, these parents get together one night a week and they spend a couple of hours learning about the school system and how they can be involved. We as a PTA developed this program to help build strong, diverse parent involvement groups. It builds together parents that have a then shared goal. They learn and develop a goal for their school. So it helps build community and helps parents learn how to work together. But also we use a lot of great tools for parents. One of my favorite things is that School Smarts is focused also on arts in the education. So parents actually do art projects to help them develop their idea of what a great school would be. School Smarts is a top-notch program, and I highly recommend that you look into it, see if you can bring it to your own school. Another program that I highly recommend and that you will find a lot of familiar faces in is Ed 100. A lot of PTA volunteers are able to help build the curriculum for Ed 100. And the thing that I love about this program is that you can share it on social media, you can share it in your newsletter, and parents can go on their own time at home, do a 5-minute quick class on Ed 100, and as they learn things about the school, taking these 5 minutes classes, they learn about our education system, but your school can get credit. So it's, if you take a 5-minute class, you get credit for 1 class, and then your credit goes towards the PTA's overall goal or your school's overall goal. So if all of the parents at your school take 1 class, so then you have what, maybe 1,000 parents, right? We'll say that everybody participates. You have 500 students, you have 1,000 parents. You get 1,000 credits for having taken a class. This goes into a drawing, and they actually do a drawing to help them fund, they give money to schools. So this could help you actually as a fundraiser. It would be a really fun thing. To work together as a goal, have your parents working together on their own time. And the thing that I have loved is, again, it's a 5-minute class. It's not like you're sitting down for a webinar for an hour, which, by the way, I'm super glad you're sitting down for this webinar for an hour, but not everybody has time for that. So 5 minutes, and you can do it on your phone. It's really quick and easy. Ed 100, it's a great program. And then the final program I want to talk about that was on those standards is the Schools of Excellence. This is a program that's put out by the National PTA. So all of your schools as PTA schools are eligible to participate. What you can do is you go online and you register your school. As a PTA leader, you register your school. Then throughout the year, there are a list of things for you to do to help build family engagement and make your school a much more enriched school. It's a wonderful program because it helps you, at least for people like me who need checklists, this gives you tangible things. It breaks it down small little bits, and as you do it, you're building a stronger community. At the end of the year, you do a self-evaluation and you send it in, and schools can earn this. I think the one in my town that I saw do this, or the one in my district, I saw the banner that they put out that they had earned School of Excellence. And I will tell you that the PTA president at that school informed me that by doing Schools of Excellence for that year, her first year as a PTA president, she had developed a stronger volunteer base for the next year. So it is an investment in your long-term health as a school and as a unit. Schools of Excellence is available. There's a link at the bottom of each of these slides to take you straight to the page to help you get started. Now, I don't know about you, but even for my volunteer work, I like to be thanked. I like to be appreciated. The Honorary Service Awards are a great way to appreciate people in your community who have been helpful for your school or for your PTA, people who volunteered and put energy into the lives of children and youth in your community. The Honorary Service Program is available all throughout the year. So there's a link at the bottom of this slide. And if you click on that link, you can go online and order different awards and then hand those out during your meetings or at events in appreciation for people who have been great volunteers. Now, the really wonderful thing about this is it's a very, it's a prepared way for you to appreciate your volunteers, but also any funds raised through the sale of these awards goes into the California State PTA Scholarships and Programs Awards. So these funds then that are raised through it go directly back into ways to build up our youth and our volunteers. So I encourage you to check out the Honorary Service Awards. The California State PTA does, again, offer grants and scholarships. The grants that are available to units and districts and councils are a little bit flexible. There are 4 categories, so you can kind of find one that works for a goal that you have and turn in an application. And we do work very hard to make sure our units, that we give out as much of the money as we can to support as many of the programs that we get applications for as much as we can. The categories that we look for are parent education, cultural arts, outreach translation, and healthy lifestyle grants. You can use these to develop a program on your campus or in your PTA. Again, these are for unit, council, and district PTAs. These applications are due by October 15th, and the funds would then be sent to you, and you have to spend those funds by June 1st at the end of the school year. More information about those are available on the CAPTA website. There's a link at the bottom of the screen for you. Oh, actually, before I move on, I want you to note that in order to be eligible for these grants, your PTA must be in good standing. So in order to be in good standing and to be considered for a grant, your PTA must have current bylaws, you must have turned in membership dues and your insurance payments. I believe those are the 3 big things that we look for in being current. So make sure that you've done those before you apply. Otherwise, we have rejected applications on those on that basis because people haven't had those turned in. PTA scholarships. These are for 2 categories of people. We have PTA volunteers, school nurses, and teachers and counselors, which are available for the $500 continuing education scholarships. And then we have the graduating seniors scholarships. We have 2 categories there. The Ralph E. White Scholarship is $500 for high school seniors going into a medical field. And then the $750 volunteer service scholarship is given to high school seniors because of their volunteer efforts. I will tell you that our PTA scholarships and grants committee love reading through the applications for these, and they also are very excited to make sure we hand out as many of these scholarships as possible. So if you know of anybody that would be eligible for a scholarship, please encourage them to fill out the scholarship application. There's more information at the CAPTA website. There's a link at the bottom of this slide for you. Another PTA program to consider is one that's near and dear to my heart. I'm on the California State PTA Reflections Committee, and I would highly recommend that you consider a PTA, a Reflections program at your PTA. Reflections has, it's just a great way to encourage the kids on campus to express themselves through art. This year, our theme is I Matter Because, and we are looking for students to submit entries that show how they would interpret that theme. I matter because. Our categories, they can create a dance, a video, a literature piece. They can write music. It has to be their own original composition. They could submit a photography or a visual arts art piece. All of these categories are open for any student to submit in. And again, the big thing is that we're looking for kids to relate to the theme. So every art piece is submitted with an application, and on the application, the kids are encouraged to write an artist statement and explain how their artwork relates to the theme. At the end of the day, the most important thing that I love about Reflections is that we are here to support and cheer on all of our students. So kids can submit their artwork, and then your unit can celebrate all of these entries by having an art show and displaying all of the amazing artwork that they do and celebrating the students for their achievements. That's what I love about Reflections, is it's not necessarily about a stiff competition. It's about celebrating our kids. There is information at the California PTA website about how to run a Reflections program. And there, I believe, Shauna, I believe you guys have a Reflections training. I don't know when it is or if it's already happened, but
yes, I actually added that to the chat. It is tomorrow, Wednesday, the June 10th at 2 p.m. So you would register the same way you did for this, or send us an email at webinar@9thdistrictpta.org, and I'll get you into that webinar as well.
Perfect. It's a very fun program, so I highly recommend that you consider it for this next year. Oh. All right. Here are some of my ideas that I have found and I've scraped off of the PTA websites, both National PTA and California PTA. I am not going to give you a ton of information on all of these because you can kind of get an idea by looking at the titles of the events, and then there's a website for each of these events. These are ready to run programs. California PTA and National PTA have put together a guide. And again, I love a checklist. There's a checklist, there are details. It makes it super easy. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to follow instructions, and at the end of the day, you'll have a great program. A lot of these programs are focused on healthy lifestyles, building a diverse community and celebrating your diversity. Let's see. Over here on this, we have another slide full of them. There's also a lot of information, a lot of programs focused on STEM and on internet safety. So these are fun programs because they're easy to go, easy and ready to go. I love it. if you watch throughout the next couple of months too, especially the family night and the science festivals, those are oftentimes, I don't believe they have grants up on the websites yet, but they are oftentimes granted programs, so you can have funds, you can apply for a grant for funds to help with those. So if you watch those websites the next 2 months or so, hopefully they'll have grant options out there. And finally, I know that we are in a weird time. And how on earth do you run a PTA program? And how does your PTA stay relevant to your community if we have to do distance learning or some weird setup for next fall? So I came up with a few ideas. Some of these are ideas that have already been talked about, but here are some things that you can do to help build your community, even if you're having to do it virtually. Again, like the reflections program, that's already, we've already talked about that, but you can do that from a distance. Smart Talk on the bottom, that is also another program that you can just click the link and you can do those things at home. My favorites, let's see, I was thinking about things that have happened in my community lately and things that I've seen. The bedtime via social media, the bedtime story via social media. This last year, our principal dressed up in crazy costumes, and at 7 o'clock on Thursday night, he would read a bedtime story. And the kids would all tune in on Facebook Live to watch the principal in a crazy costume and read a story. It was so much fun. These are little things, but they might help build your community. So I gave some ideas. This is by no means an exhaustive list. Feel free to build on it, but these were some things to get you started. All right. I think I have shared as much information as I could, and I think I'm open for questions if anybody needs any more questions, or if Rose or Shauna, if either of you have more you would like to add.
Sorry, it takes a minute to come back from, hiding somewhere else. I just wanted to add, so we've put some links in the chat. I didn't put all the links she just had on those last 2 pages. So I believe that are those included in your 100 ideas handout?
Actually, no, those are all different.
Okay.
Yes, so altogether, if you look at the 101 ideas and you look at what I've put in here, I think you should have about 130 ideas.
Okay,
I'm trying to get you guys started, and some of them are really great for middle schools and high schools. I will tell you, because I know those are the schools where people say, I don't know what to do. Where does PTA fit? So there are ideas in there for you at middle school and high school level.
Okay, and I'm working on creating a file drive that will be in the email that you get in 24 hours that will direct you to where all of these things are contained, but I don't have that yet. So I'm fighting with permission in Google Drives right at the moment. But Rose is gonna ask you some great questions that are popping up.
We had some questions. One was about the insurance guide and COVID, if things were going to change. As of now, we don't have any changes. We are in the middle of our calendar year. As you know, our insurance guide runs through a calendar year. So as of now, we have not heard anything. If there are changes, they will probably be in the 2021 insurance guide. But in the event that there are changes to the guide, you will be notified either by the insurance company, California State PTA, your district presidents. That information will come down the line and you guys will receive it. As for that, we kind of answered. There was questions about virtual trainings, which you touched on. What was some of the other? I have to bring them up because I can't remember quite. Talked about Ed 100 being in Spanish. Yes, it is in Spanish. That was kind of all the questions. We answered all the ones that were brought to us while you were speaking.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Rose, for managing that.
Wait. We have new ones, Rose. Look at
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
I do. This is different looking at. Somebody asked if you could put the last slide on again. So many great ideas.
This one?
There was a question during this time. Can we, that is probably the one I think they were talking about.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. What'd you say?
Yes, that is.
Oh, I'm asking them if this is the slide. That is the one? Okay. And during this time, can we create a discussion board where PTAs can share ideas in this COVID world? That is a question I have not answered.
So I think that would be a great idea. I am not in a position to do that for CAPTA. Shauna, I don't know if 9th District would want to do that.
I think you had a great idea about posting those to our Facebook page for 9th District PTA, and we can continue to share those out. So if you send us ideas, we can put them. I know we've already done a couple where schools have done virtual spirit weeks and things, and I know CAPTA has put those on their Facebook/Twitter feeds as well. But those are all great resources to find ways to share those ideas.
There is a question about how do you get past streaming copyright issues with the bedtime story program? We wanted to do it, but we don't know if it was legal.
So what I would do is I would call AIM, our insurance company, and they will make sure that you do not violate any copyright laws because they don't want to cover that lawsuit. So call AIM Insurance. I don't think it's a problem. However, I am a stay-at-home mom without a background in this. So I would call AIM.
Do you have any recommendations for middle schools? It just says what recommendations for middle schools. I'm not sure in depth what the question is about. I'm assuming your virtual programs that you have.
Virtual programs that I would recommend. So I have an 8th grader, and his middle school has been doing some fun things. I would highly recommend doing things like the virtual dance party, the school spirit days. But I also, and this is my perspective and this is who I am, but I would encourage middle schools and high schools to start looking at ways to help kids ease into or find their way into civil or civic duties. So I would look for ways to help kids advocate, teaching kids how to be a part of the city and the city council, how to go and watch a meeting and how to be aware of what's going on, or maybe to, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I would look at Ed 100 even for kids. I would look at ways to focus on that. I think also postcard campaigns would be a really great thing for our middle school and high school kids because
that was actually a question, Abby. Somebody just asked, what are they? So would you like to explain?
Oh, yeah. So postcard campaigns, again, these are all ideas that I brainstormed just here at my house. But my idea for postcard campaigns is having your students create postcards for teacher appreciation, for appreciating your administration. Maybe you have them create postcards to thank first responders, or to encourage our local leaders, city council, the mayor, whoever. Or in this time when a lot of our seniors are stuck in their senior living facilities and unable to leave, maybe we could do a postcard campaign as a school and create postcards to drop off at the senior living facility. So just at home, kids can create postcards and they can drop them off at the school, and a volunteer can let them sit and unvirus themselves by just letting them sit at the school for a couple of days or a week, and then drop them off at the senior living facility. So those are just a few ideas.
I think the last question that we have on this is what guidance do you have for and if we can host in-person events?
What guidance do I have for if and when we can host in-person events? Is that the question?
Yes, that was the question.
Okay. So I do think that this will vary throughout the state, and it'll be something that we need to use, in part, our best judgment. I encourage our PTAs to always follow whatever the most current health orders are from our local officials, of course. And aside from that, you may want to just remember to be flexible and remember that families will be making the decision on whether they participate based on their own comfort level. So again, that'll be in the whole, be flexible. Understand that people not coming to an event doesn't mean they don't want to be a part of the community, doesn't mean they don't think it's a great idea. There may be just needing to be a lot of being patient with people. And I would probably encourage you for the next year or two at least, or next year, to encourage everybody that comes, if you do have in-person events, make sure everybody's wearing masks, set out lots of hand sanitizer, and make sure that you have things in big open spaces. The nice thing about being in California is we have wonderful weather most of the year. So if you can do outside events, you might find that you have a lot more people willing and able to come, just because that gives them more space and fresh air and sunshine. I think those would be my biggest, that would be what I would consider at this time. Although again, it's a hard thing to decide because so much is changing so rapidly and different in different places.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you again.
Yeah, there are no more open questions.
Thank you so much, Abby, and Rosemary, for joining us today. Again, I'm thrilled to bring all of this information to our PTA leaders here in San Diego. And we look forward to, I don't know, whatever questions you might send us after watching this webinar. So have fun the rest of your day, ladies, and we'll see you later.
Thank you, Shauna, so much for all the work you put into this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me, 9th District. It was a pleasure.
Have a great day.